Hello everyone, welcome to today's demo on flow error handling in Salesforce. To introduce myself, my name is Rupesh Raghavan and I'm a Salesforce consultant specializing in automation, Sales Cloud, Pardot, which is now known as Marketing Cloud, Account Engagement, and Financial Services Cloud. So today I'm going to walk you through an important topic, error handling in flows. Whether you're a Salesforce admin, consultant, business user, understanding error handling in flows is crucial to maintaining reliable automation. So before we jump into the demo that I prepared for you, let's go over a quick deck I have prepared. This will give you a clear understanding of the key concepts in the demo, why fault handling in Salesforce is important, the use cases, and also more importantly, what we will be covering in the demo. So let's have a look. All right, so let me just put this in presentation mode. So we have the flow error handling deck here. So this is the agenda that we have, use cases. So I'll go through the flow usage and scenarios in which error handling flows are important. The design and the features and the idea and how the flow is designed, and some of the main features in that flow. And finally, I'll go through the demo and I'll open up the stage for any questions you may have. All right, so let's go through the use case. So let's imagine a company that wants to automatically update an opportunity stage based on latest activity. So what will we do in this case is you'll create a record triggered flow which updates the stage when a key field like an amount or close date or probability on the opportunity record is changed. So the moment one of them is changed, it updates the stage accordingly. So this runs fine, and if all of these fields are and the flow is working as designed, it's great. But there are potential issues that can come up. One of the first ones is if a required field like close date is missing, the flow is likely to fail. If, let's say, the user is running the flow, runs it without the right permissions to update the field or update the record, what happens in that case? The update will not happen, and again, the flow potentially will error out. And finally, and a very common cause of flow errors is an automation conflict. What happens when there's a validation rule or an apex trigger that is running on the exact same field? And what happens in that case? In that case, it is possible that the update doesn't go through and the flow errors out again. And it's actually a very common cause of flow erroring out, because especially in large organizations, you have multiple flows running on the same object. Though it's not the best practice, but still, if there are multiple flows also running on the same object which are unrelated to one another or not in the main flow, it is possible that whoever designs the new flow is unaware that there is already a field update running in another flow. Not the best practice, but it does happen, and therefore such things and such errors can happen. And that's exactly why we need the error handling flow. So what are the solutions? So there are multiple ways in which we can deal with this, and depending on the size of the organization, as well as if it's an enterprise size with competing apex triggers, integration, and many multiple flows running, and with real-time flows running as well. Let's say you have a service cloud cloud implemented as well. There are agents taking the call. There are then there's another one which is Sales Cloud implementation, which also some users are using flows, let's say on the account object or the contact object, and the agent is also updating records as in real-time basis. There is potential for a lot of errors, and even if you're not that large, it is possible that if you're a small with limited number of licenses or limited number of users, there may be a case where you want to know and want to understand why so many errors are cropping up. And one of the great solutions is actually, and a very scalable one, is to have a custom object. In this case, in the demo, I have named it as error log. Now this object, error log object, can record all the errors that will show up from all the flows that you have. So in a way, it's a collection of all the flow errors that you can look at. You can create reports, dashboards, so that you can figure out what's happening, which flow is the flow that is causing all this, of which object, and maybe that will give you ideas to streamline all the multiple competing flows that you have. That's one option. The second solution is, and it's ideal for small businesses or small instances, is to notify sales reps or admin via an email. Now, a standard email does go out from Salesforce, which goes to, you can define which email it goes to, and that Apex exception email that you will get, which is a fairly detailed long form email, which is fairly technical and requires someone who's already worked on the flow, or an admin perhaps. Even if it goes to admin, it is possible that the admin needs some help in figuring out who or what happened. And the idea behind this is not just that. The idea is to make sure that the sales rep, or let's say the user who triggered the flow, is aware that the update didn't go through. And the admin, if required, also gets an update stating that this is a system issue or an integration issue and you better look at it. And finally, an action. So we can assign a task to review the opportunity because the opportunity did not get the update that was required. So maybe a task set to the opportunity owner or the account owner saying that please have a look, this did not go through. You might want to talk to your admin, or you might want to manually update if the issue is important, right? So why is this important? And coming to that point is it prevents silent failures. Now, let's say users do not know that these flows are failing. Maybe it's an auto-triggered flow, and runs at a specific time, and you just assume that these flows are running and the updates are happening, and you never care to look. So what happens over a period of time is that your records in Salesforce do not reflect the exact or the true story, and this could have ramifications. If allowed to go on, your data is stale in Salesforce, and you don't want that. So this one prevents silent failures. Improves data integrity. Linked to the first point is the fact that these errors are being flagged. It's being recorded in one central place, and there are eyes on those errors happening. Ensures that fixes happen at a quick time, in a short period of time, and therefore the data integrity in Salesforce improves and is maintained going forward. And finally, it also reduces admin troubleshooting time. Now that you have greater information of what happened, why it happened, and also if one flow is erroring on multiple times, you understand that there is higher prioritization required for that flow to troubleshoot it, or also that if required, if you require assistance, let's say from your implementation partner, or let's say from your integration team, then also you can lump all of the similar cases together so that you can take it forward and have a discussion and troubleshoot that. So in a way, it helps reduce the troubleshooting time, and also provides you solutions that can last. So that's the use case and why error handling is important. So how is this designed, and what are the main features? As I mentioned, we have the custom object, which is called as error log, to capture and record all errors in one place. Now, in this design, we have each fault as categorized into various types, depending on the type of error. Let's say system error, user error, and so on. The system also takes care of not erroring out itself. This is an error handling flow by its name. So we don't want this flow to error out. So we want to make sure that there's a null check. So what happens in an instance where, let's say there is no values passed to this flow? We don't want this flow to error out. So there is a null check to ensure that flow doesn't error out. And a path, which I will go through in the demo, shows what happens in such instances. And then the actions based on error type, maybe send an email, maybe creating a case if necessary, and also putting in a right queue in the custom object that we created so that the right team looks at it. And then finally, dashboards and reports. We're not going to cover this in the demo, but as it's an object and has all the records being created, there is potential for creating a lot of dashboards, a lot of reports that can help you when you have your monthly meetings going with the health of Salesforce instance. You can look at this report or your dashboard to find out how you're doing on all the flows that are designed. And if you have an external team, let's say an implementation partner who is working on your instance building out flows, this is a good dashboard or a report to go over with them in your weekly or monthly check-ins to ensure that everything is going as planned. So what are the features? So it is an auto launch flow, and the intent is to log all flow errors. It can be called from any flow, and it's called as a subflow by passing on all the fault message, fault record, which is provided by Salesforce in the flow itself to this error log, error handling flow, and then it creates the custom object record and so on. It captures various types of errors and performs actions as mentioned, and it's modular in design, so it's ensured to ensure scalability, and flow can be used by large enterprises as well as orgs with small licenses or SMBs. All right, so before we get into the demo, I just wanted to quickly go over what all fault errors are we covering. Now, we can also further divide it into different types of errors that we may have specifically in a particular org. This is just standard placeholders. So we have system error, system faults, user input error, let's say a validation rule, a missing field, and so on. And then the governor limit. Now we do know that Salesforce is a multi-tenant architecture. So you may be using, and not maybe, you are actually using Salesforce along with other clients of Salesforce. So a runaway flow in amount of resources it can use, and that's what the governor limit is for. And if it exceeds those limits, the flow errors out, and that's called as the governor limit error. API integration error. So if your system talks to another system and your flow is supposed to update or take an update, there is a possibility that those errors creep up, maybe server downtime and so on. At which point the flow error is out. So that's an API integration error. And then a miscellaneous error, which is a catch-all for any type of error that we haven't covered above. Now, if your org has a specific error type that is very unique and you want to capture that, we can do that as well. And how we capture the fault is using the fault error message that is created by Salesforce itself. Now, when Salesforce creates that email, it does have the exact reason for why the flow is erroring out. So it could be, and it's uniquely worded. So it is either has the word validation in it, integrity in it, and so on and so forth. So we're using that particular message and finding out what kind of error it is, and then categorizing it based on that. We will show you that. I will show you that in the demo. All right, so that's our slide deck. So let's quickly go into our org. If you have seen the previous videos, you would be familiar with this org as well. So we had, I had showed you an account management flow. We're going to use that flow to run some errors. Now, creating an error for a flow that is working is difficult. So I can show you two errors. One would be a validation error, and one would be a wrong email error that shows up. And we will go through this flow. This one here, you see how the screen action allows you to do the following. So this is a flow, a screen flow. So we're going to use it to test out our error handling flow. Before we get into the testing, I want to show you how the flow itself looks like. So this is how our flow looks like. So let me just show you the edit flow itself. Yeah, so this is the auto launch flow. It has the null check. I'll take you through that, what it is. And then it comes here, values not blank, and the error type. And based on which action it takes, there are certain specific actions. So if it's a system fault validation, then it goes through this, it creates a queue, and so on and so forth. So I will take you through it, but this is how it looks like, a bird's eye view. And how is it called? So let's say this is the flow, and this is actually the flow that you see here. It's a screen flow. So any element like the get or the update element, we can create a fault path. This dotted red line is the fault path. It gives you a initial screen which tells the user, since it's a screen flow, and then it invokes. It's a subflow that is called from this flow itself. We pass on the message like the running flow interview, current date time, fault message, and so on. And this is used by our flow error handling flow to do the needful. So before we get into this part, let me show you how this all works. So I'm going to create a contact. Now, the way we will make this to error out is through creating a validation rule. So it's a very simple validation rule that I created just so that we can error this flow out. So we have a validation which says email required. So if the email, hopefully it shows up. Oh, yeah, it showed up here. Yeah, so it's a simple validation. So email cannot be blank. That's all there is. So if you're creating a contact, you need to have email that is filled. Now, when the flow was designed, if you see here, the email, the way it is right now, is not a required field. So the flow, as far as flow is concerned, it will take you through the next set of actions, which is creating a contact based on the information you fill. So if you do not fill this, which means it's a blank, this flow will error out. So let's look at that. So let's create a name. All right, and we're not going to enter the email. And let's next. So you see immediately this, we have encountered an error while creating or updating the record. Now this is something which is a custom text that I have added. And again, all of this is customizable. So you will get an email with changes required. So what this message screen is showing is that your record didn't update because there was an error. It hit an error. And then it tells the user who encountered it what is going to happen. So if this is a system error, your admin team will get all the details. You can also share this with your admin team. So if you're on Slack, or you can email them saying, hey, such and such contact did not go through. Please have a look. This is what I was told to. So that's one way. And let's say you go in next. So it comes back. So in the background, the error is logged and actions took place. So now let's see what actions took place. So as far as the user is concerned, well, the flow did error out, and that's it. The admin must have gotten the information. If not, I will share. If I'm the user, I will share it with the admin. But now, what actually happened in the backend? So remember I said we have an error log custom object. So if I were to go there and look at the error log, you will see a validation error at the time that I ran this flow. A validation error has happened and an error log was created. And as the name suggests, it's a validation exception. And we made it purposefully because we didn't enter the email. And had we entered it, this error would not have happened. So it's a validation rule error that has happened. And we now know that this, it's been logged as a record. Also, I wanted to show you the actions that take place. So we got this email. Hey, Alan, your recent submission encountered an issue. So this you are getting as a user. Action required, please update the missing field or update the field based on field validation and try again. So in this design, the user is being told that your flow entered a validation issue, which means you did not put the valid information, which is an email. So if you try again and put the email, you can actually carry on your normal business and the contact could be created. So you're not waiting for the admin. So this is what I meant by actions. So you have passed the buck from the admin who has to look at it, but the user also gets an email that says that you don't have to wait for the admin to troubleshoot and fix the flow. All you need to do is make sure that you are putting in all the valid information, including email. Now, this is not being customized for that particular criteria, but you can actually mention that in this custom text here, that maybe have a look at email, maybe have a look at the phone number and make sure that it's entered. And as long as you have that information, maybe Alan here can go back and create the same contact by filling in necessary information. So that's the information that a user gets, but you also do get the long form error that, yeah, this error, this is something that the admin gets anyway from Salesforce. So you get that, as you can see, this field custom validation exception. Now this is the flow email that Salesforce sends, and it has the exact error that occurred. So this is what it's saying. This error occurred when the flow field tried to create field custom validation exception. Email is required, right? That's the exception that was hit. So the user got an email saying a validation issue happened. The admin obviously gets this email. The error is logged here, and further actions can be taken up, right? So that is one type of error. The other one that I want to show you is, let's say it's a wrong email. If you see, Josh here has this email, which is not correct. It's not in the right form. So let's update this contact. And we're going to use Josh because we know his email is wrong. So which means that it will error out no matter what we do. I'm not making any changes because even if I update and I've made one small change, it's not going to go through because this email is wrong. So again, we've encountered an error. The similar text to the one I showed you before. Again, we can customize what a user sees based on different type of errors as well. And so this message comes through, which is something similar to what we saw. Log the error, and boom. So you come back as a user, you come back to the main screen, you can carry on your business. But what happened underneath in the background is another log was created, this time with a different error type, which is the invalid email, right? And if you go in, you see that this person, Jay Davis, this seems like an invalid email. This shouldn't be updated. You have the error record ID, which is which account this is on. So you can quickly have a look at what time it happened and so on and so forth. Again, these are basic information. So if you want to add more info, from the running flow, you can get any info you want. Maybe you want which contact was being updated to be specifically mentioned here. We can do that. So a lot of customization possible, but the idea here is to show how all of this works out. So now in this case, we have the error log. This is an invalid email error type, right? Now, if you look here in the list view, you also see that certain other faults are also here, system faults. Now, system faults are serious faults, and maybe in your design, you want separate pair of eyes to be on the system errors. So what I've done here is I've created a separate queue just for system errors. And that can be a way to look at them in isolation. Your team can have a look at which are the system faults that are happening, or a specific type of message that shows up. So this is another way of grouping a type of error that shows up. All right. So that is the error log. Now that we know how the error handling works, let's have a look at the flow itself. Right. So now we know this is an error auto launch flow. Remember I mentioned while I was going through the deck that we do have an error null check. All it does is it makes sure that none of these values is null. If it is null, it has a separate path to take. But if it's say the information is there, then it goes through the standard happy path that we have built out. So here in this decision element, what it is doing is it is looking at the various outcomes, right? So if there's a system fault, user input error, invalid email, user input error, again, the valid missing field or validation rule issue, the governor limit error, or the API integration error. Now, how this decision is made as to what type of error it is based on a formula. And the formula has to be, it's a Boolean formula. And if it's equals true, then it takes that path. So what is that formula? So let's look at one of them, the system fault. So if the error message, now remember the error message, invalid cross-reference key, if it sees that the error message has this value, if it's an exact match, then it goes through that. So where is this message coming from? You see this field custom validation exception. So let's find out. So this user validation. So in this path, if it finds that it's field custom validation exception, it is considered a user input error, right? So it goes here, and then it comes here. It assigns the type which is required before we log the issue, and then goes to error log record. So we now have the values. We've already assigned some of the values here, and it reaches here, it creates a record. It also gets the user, because it's a user-driven issue, assigns the email, and then sends that email to that particular user who triggered it. Now, where do we get that information? We get that again from the flow itself, the field. Let me just show you. Yeah, the user who triggered it. This is being passed from the main flow itself, and this user ID is being used to send the email to this user, and that email is this type, the one that you just saw. So your recent submission, this text, the whole text that you're seeing, is basically because of this action here, and system is and at the end the email is sent. What I've also done, just to cover off all scenarios, is let's say this flow is being called, and you still want to keep doing and keep in complex flows, you may not want the flow to end even though the flow errored out. There may be other things that you can still proceed with. In some scenarios, that is a possibility, but you do want the flow to know that a certain part of the flow did error out. So you can just pass on this back to the main flow, that is fault is true. So now you can use this is fault in your main flow to make sure that you handled it accordingly. So you have that information with you in the way you want to design the rest of the flow. So that's all that the assign is fault is supposed to do. Now, I also want to show you the system fault path, the one that we saw here, right? So this one, if it is a system fault, what it does, it gets a queue, and we have a specific queue, as you can see here, and this queue is called. So we get the queue, we assign the error type system, error type. We also get the owner ID, which is the queue ID, and then we create the log with the owner being the queue. And then again, the email is this time sent to the admin, saying, hey, a system issue has occurred, so you better have a look at that. Since I cannot replicate that in this flow itself, we can do is just show you in the debug. And I'll do is, let's look at here, right? So since it says it has to contain, all I will do is I'll just copy it. And this is just for debug. Let's say I have this error message here. And yeah, I think this is the minimum information that is required. Yep. So if you see here, what happened was it did the null check. So there was value here. It reached here, and this is interesting. And we can look at the debug logs here to see the error type. This is where it is. So it contained that information, that particular message. So the system fault permissions issue equals true. So it takes that first path, it gets the queue, it assigns it, the record is created, and email is sent. And actually the email would have been sent. So let's just have a look at it. System error. So again, attention admin, a flow encountered an error. This is going to be a different kind of an email than the one that user got. This can be a lot more technical because it's going to the admin, and you can say, hey, this was the problem. You would have got an email, but this is what thumbs up. Yeah, a user was running the flow and a system issue happened. So you might want to have a look. It also tells you that as the log has been created and it is in the queue. So again, yeah, here you go. So 437, there will be no names because I didn't add it, but as you can see, this just shows you that a system fault was created. It will show up in this queue, right? So this is in a nutshell what a error flow or error handling looks like. And as I showed you here, let's have a look at the main flow itself. There you go. So this is the main flow. And here we have the get contact, an error message shows up. And this is the one that you saw in red. We have encountered. Again, we can change this text here and we can name whatever we wanted. We can have our customized text and also the email that goes out. So many places of improvement. We can actually send out a lightning email if you want all your branding and everything to be sent as well. So a lot of room for customization, changes, modifications based on your use case. But I did want to show you how this works and how the error handling can be seamlessly be integrated into a flow. Even if your error flow was designed later on, you can keep adding, or if you change certain things in input requirements, all you need to do is just like a subflow, go here and add that particular piece of information. Let's say you're now using is critical. Just make sure that you have this turned on as included, and then you can pass that particular information as well. And remember the is fault, which I was providing in the main flow, which is this one at the end, is fault. You can also use this as an output value. Just use this, create a variable, and use this is fault information that you have as an output from the error handling flow in your main flow in whichever form you want to use. So yeah, so that is the flow and the demo. So to summarize, how we handle the error log or how we handle errors is, first of all, we have a custom object which records all the errors that happen in the org or the instance. Second is actions based on the type of error. So if it's a system error, it logs it into a queue. If it is a user-driven error, it sends out an email to the user saying, hey, this errored out, better have a look. Maybe it's something that you can fix on your own. Just add the email or the phone number, whatever is required. And if it's none of those, the admin gets an email anyway, which states that, hey, a system error has occurred, or maybe a field integrity issue has happened, so please have a look. And that's in addition to the emails that Salesforce sends out anyway. So the admin is equipped, the user is aware of an error, and Salesforce, as much as data is concerned, is also healthy because you're not having silent failures. So overall, a necessity in any Salesforce instance, be it complex, be it new, you want to start with a clean slate. You want to have the flow error handling right from the get-go. So that's covers the error log flow and why we need it, the use case. If you have any questions, please let me know. But again, thank you very much for listening in. And if you have any questions, please reach out. So thank you once again, and have a good rest of the day.